What does it sound like when a 90-year-old woman who has been hopelessly barren her entire life hears a promise from God so impossible that all she can do is laugh? Is that the bitter laugh of doubt? Or is it the first flicker of a joy she'd long since given up on? This is the story of how one woman's private, painful laugh was transformed into a public testament of joy that would echo for thousands of years. It's a story about the crushing weight of time, the sting of a deep, unfulfilled longing, and the power of a single promise to change everything. It makes you ask a question we all face eventually. When my situation looks completely impossible, what do I trust? The reality I can see with my own eyes, or the one who sees beyond it? To really feel the weight of this story, you have to understand the silence, not a peaceful silence. It's the heavy, aching quiet of an empty home, of a hope that has faded so much it's just part of the background. It all started with a promise God made to a man named Abraham, back when he was 75 years old. God promised to make his family as numerous as the stars in the sky, a great nation from his own bloodline. It was a world-changing promise. But there was one massive, unavoidable problem. His wife, Sarah, couldn't have children. In their culture, this wasn't just a private sadness. It was seen as a public shame, a sign you'd been forgotten by God. Every month, every single year that went by, was just another reminder of what they didn't have. And they waited for 25 years. Think about that. A quarter of a century. A whole generation can be born and grow up in that time. For 25 years, they lived with this gap between what God said and what their reality screamed at them. And now, they were just old. Abraham was almost 100, and Sarah was 90. By any human standard, their hope wasn't just fading, it was dead. It was a closed chapter, a book that ended without a final page. That incredible promise felt like a dream from a lifetime ago. Then one day, it all changed. It started out like any other day on the plains of Mamre. The sun was beating down, and Abraham was sitting by his tent, trying to escape the heat. Suddenly, he looks up and sees 3 men standing nearby. Being a good host, he rushes out to greet them, offering them water, rest, and a meal. He had no idea he was talking to angels and the Lord himself. As they're eating, the conversation suddenly gets very personal. One of the visitors cuts right to the chase and asks, "Where is your wife, Sarah?" Abraham tells him she's inside the tent. And that's when the visitor makes a statement so specific, so time-bound, it couldn't be ignored. He says, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Sarah was inside the tent, just out of sight, listening in. Imagine what she just heard. Not some vague promise of one day, but a deadline, 1 year, after 90 years of nothing. After decades of carrying a promise that felt more like a burden than a blessing. After her body had given up, a reality she knew better than anyone. The sheer nerve of that statement, the absolute impossibility of it, didn't hit her with a sudden burst of faith. It hit her as absurd. And in that moment, a sound escaped her, not from her mouth, but from somewhere deep inside. Sarah laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a silent, internal scoff. A laugh that came from a place of pure, hardened realism. It was the laugh of a woman who had carried the shame of her barrenness for her entire life. The Bible even records what she was thinking. "After I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure?" Her laugh was a mix of disbelief, cynicism, and the exhausted sigh of a heart that had been let down too many times to even try to hope again. She looked at her age, her body, the unchangeable laws of nature, and compared it to the promise. From where she stood, it was a joke. But that quiet laugh was not unheard. The Lord, who hears everything we think and feel, immediately called it out. He didn't confront Sarah directly, not at first. He turned to Abraham and asked, "Why did Sarah laugh?" He pulled her hidden doubt right out into the open. And then he asked a question that completely reframes the entire story. A question meant not just for Sarah, but for all of us. Is anything too hard for the Lord? That question changes everything. It shifts the focus from Sarah's worn-out 90-year-old body to God's limitless creative power. It was a challenge for her to look past what she could see and consider the one who created what she could see. Terrified of being caught, Sarah did what most of us do when our doubt is exposed. She lied. "I did not laugh," she said. But God gently corrected her. He simply replied, "No, but you did laugh." He didn't condemn her. He didn't take back the promise. He just stated the truth, met her right there in her fear and doubt, and let the promise stand. The appointment was set. The impossible was on its way. A year goes by. A year of waiting. But this time, it was different. It wasn't that old, empty ache anymore. Now, it was charged with a terrifying and thrilling possibility. Every single day brought them closer to finding out, would God's word win, or would Sarah's cynical laugh get the final say? And then, it happened. Exactly at the time God had promised, the impossible became real. Sarah, at 90 years old, conceived and gave birth to a son. Abraham, at 100, finally held the child he'd been promised. They named him Isaac, which comes from the Hebrew word Yitzhak. It means, he laughs. The name itself would be a permanent reminder of their entire journey. It captured not just their greatest joy, but also their greatest doubt. The laugh of skepticism that Sarah tried to hide was now transformed into a totally different kind of laughter. This time, Sarah's laugh was loud, public, and spilling over with a joy she never ever thought she would feel. She said, "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." Her first laugh was private and full of pain. Her second was a public celebration, a testimony to a God who is faithful. The barren woman was a mother. The silent tent was filled with the cries of a baby. The ancient promise was now a living, breathing person. Her laugh of doubt had been redeemed and turned into pure, unfiltered delight. Sarah's story isn't just some ancient tale. It's a mirror. We all have those barren places in our lives, don't we? Places where our hopes have grown old and our faith has worn thin. We've all had moments where a dream or a promise seems absolutely impossible. And maybe, in the quiet of our own hearts, we've also had that cynical laugh thinking, "Yeah, right, how could that ever happen for me?" Sarah's journey shows us that our doubt isn't a deal breaker for God. He meets us right where we are, in our weakness and our fear, not with anger, but with a love that just keeps its promises. He doesn't need our perfect faith to do the impossible. The question he asked her is the same one he asks us today. Is anything too hard for the Lord? The same God who brought life from a dead womb can bring life to the dead places in our own lives. His specialty is turning our secret, cynical laughs into shared, joyful ones. If this story hit home for you, subscribe for more stories of faith that challenge what we think is possible. And in the comments, I'd love to hear about a time you felt like Sarah when a promise seemed impossible. Let's remind each other that even when we laugh in doubt, God is often just setting the stage for a much better laugh down the road.